What if the signs were there all along, and we just didn't want to see them? They didn't arrive with sirens or warnings. They whispered, slowly, a belt hold tighter, a favorite blouse hanging looser than usual, a once hearty appetite replaced by a quiet refusal. I'm not hungry today. Most people don't see it at first, because in a world that fears the end, we've learned to explain it away. It's just age, we say. She's just not eating much lately. But deep down, something shifts, and the body always whispers before it screams. Significant weight loss is often the first quiet alarm. It's not about diets or skipping meals for vanity. It's the kind of weight loss that happens without trying, unnoticed at first, but persistent, subtle, and then unmistakable. The sleeves sag. The hands feel bonier when you hold them. You notice the way they now use a pillow to cushion a chair they used to sit in for hours. And when you ask if they've lost weight, they might laugh gently, shrugging it off. I guess I have, they say. I just haven't felt much like eating. But it's more than that. The body, in its wisdom, begins to change when it's preparing for its final journey. Not out of fear, not out of failure, but because it's winding down. Digestion slows. Muscle mass fades. Not because they stop moving, but because the systems required to maintain it are quietly shutting off. You might see them struggling with jars they once opened easily. Their walk becomes shorter, slower, not out of laziness, but because the energy simply isn't there. Protein, once so vital for strength, isn't processed the same. The liver, kidneys, and gut are no longer in sync, and so the body conserves what little energy is left for survival. And then comes a change in appetite. They don't crave their favorite foods anymore. Coffee sits untouched. Soup is left half-eaten. You try everything, cooking their favorites, blending smoothies, encouraging just a few bites. And they may try for you, but their body no longer signals hunger the same way. The brain, receiving fewer cues, forgets to remind them to eat. Taste fades, smell dulls, and food, once a joy, is now a chore. Sometimes, families mistake this for depression or stubbornness, but often it's a deeper shift. This kind of weight loss isn't about will, it's about biology. It's the body preparing, gently, instinctively, for rest. There's also the emotional layer. They might not say it aloud, but part of them feels a change. They may avoid the mirror or brush off compliments meant to lift their spirits because they feel it, the weakening grip, the clothes that no longer fit, the strange, foreign feeling of their own body becoming smaller, lighter, like it's slowly letting go. You might notice them wearing layers, even in warmth, not just for comfort, but because the weight loss brings chill. The body's thermostat is no longer reliable. You might see bruises more easily now. Skin that once held tight now feels papery, delicate, as if even the air could leave a mark. And when illness comes, be it flu or infection, recovery takes longer because there's less muscle to fight back, less resilience, less fuel in the tank. The immune system, tied closely to nourishment and strength, begins to falter too, all from something that started with a skipped lunch and never quite returned to normal. Sometimes the solution isn't more calories. It's more compassion. Not more meals, but more presence. Because the goal isn't to force strength back into a body that's gently bowing out. It's to honor the body for all it has carried. All the dinners made. All the babies rocked. All the long walks, heavy bags, and held in tears endured for decades. So what can you do? You can offer what matters most now. Comfort, hydration, soft, easy-to-chew meals in small, beautiful bites. A calm environment where eating isn't pressured, but invited. You can sit with them, hold their hand while they sip soup, play soft music. Let food become less of a task and more of a gesture of love. Because weight loss at this stage isn't just about numbers. It's about noticing, being present, and gently acknowledging that the body is trying to tell us something. And if we listen closely, we'll hear what it's saying. I'm tired. I'm slowing. I'm preparing. And perhaps the hardest part for loved ones is letting go of the idea that fixing it is still the goal. Sometimes love looks like not pushing plate. Sometimes Care looks like soft conversation instead of supplements. Sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is simply to sit and be there, but this was only the first whisper. And the second is heavier still. It lies not in the body's shape, but in its strength. In the next room, in the next chapter, it's not weight that disappears, but energy. The body speaks in silence. And if we don't listen now, it may be too late to truly hear. Sometimes it's not the body that goes first. It's the light behind the eyes. You notice it one morning. They sit longer on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Not sad, not in pain, just still, as if gathering the energy to move through a day that hasn't started yet. You offer coffee. They nod, but they don't get up. You remind them they have an appointment. They sigh, not out of frustration, but out of emptiness. This is what fatigue looks like in the final year. Not sleepiness, not laziness, but a profound exhaustion that lives in the bones. It's in the way brushing their teeth becomes a task to be paced. In the way they lean on walls between rooms they once moved through with ease. In the way a conversation, just a few minutes long, leaves them silent afterward, drained not just physically, but emotionally. The body, once vibrant, is now in conservation mode. Many don't understand this at first. Just rest a bit more. Let's go for a short walk. It'll help. But rest doesn't refill the tank like it used to, because the tank itself has changed. Organs are slowing. The heart beats softer. The lungs breathe smaller. Muscles receive less oxygen. And everything, every gesture, every motion becomes an effort of will. They may sleep longer, yet wake just as tired. Naps that once refreshed now merely soften the edges of fatigue. You see them nodding off mid-sentence, or staring into the distance as though the world itself has become too heavy to hold. And underneath it all, there's often shame. Yes, shame, because many elders, especially those who once thrived on independence, now feel a quiet guilt they can't express. They notice your worry when you help them up. They hear the hesitation when you ask if they're okay. They remember who they were and feel the gap widening between that memory and their current state. This isn't just a physical shift. It's emotional, spiritual, a surrender that doesn't come easily. The man who used to fix the roof now struggles to lift a glass. The woman who once danced in the kitchen now has to sit to fold towels. And sometimes they stop trying, not because they've given up, but because they know their body has. The danger here isn't just physical weakness. It's what happens after the weakness. They begin to retreat, to say no more often, to skip gatherings, to avoid calls, to decline dinner, even when it's their favorite. The world becomes too fast, too loud, too demanding. So they shrink it down to what they can manage. A favorite chair, a quiet routine, a space where they don't feel like they're falling behind. And yet, this retreat can be mistaken for indifference. Families might say, she doesn't want to do anything anymore. Or, he's just being stubborn. But it's not stubbornness. It's surrender. A quiet, reluctant surrender to the body's new reality. And here's the part that often gets missed. Sometimes, this fatigue brings tears. Not loud sobs, but silent ones. Tears that fall when no one is looking out of frustration, fear, or grief for the life they feel slipping away. They might not talk about it, but they feel it every day, in their chest, in their back, in the way they pause before walking up a single step, remembering a time when they could run. So what can we do? Not push, not cheerlead, not try to drag them back into the life they once had, but meet them where they are. If they can't go for a walk, sit with them by the window. If they're too tired to talk, just be silent together. If holding a fork is hard, cut the food quietly without comment, because presence, not productivity, is what matters now. You can adjust their environment, a recliner that lifts gently, lighting that soothes tired eyes, fewer stairs, less clutter. Make their space feel less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. You can speak slowly, sit near, let the pace of conversation slow down to theirs. Sometimes a simple question like, would you like to rest now, means more than all the solutions you could offer. And if they express frustration, meet it with grace. I know it's hard. I see how much you're trying. I'm here. No rush. These phrases become lifelines. They remind them that their value hasn't diminished with their energy. Because fatigue in the final stage of life is not failure. It's not defeat. It's a signal. The body is turning inward, saving what little remains of what matters most. Breathing, being, loving. And in those quiet moments, something unexpected happens. A kind of peace can begin to settle in, a slower rhythm, a softer way of being. It's no longer about doing. It's about feeling, not chasing time, but holding it. So if your loved one is sleeping more, pausing more, withdrawing more, it may not mean they're slipping away too fast. It may mean they're listening to their body's oldest wisdom. Be still, be gentle, be here. But fatigue was only the second whisper, and the third will strike deeper still, not in the muscles, not in the limbs, but in the very center of connection, the mind. Sometimes the body rests because the soul is beginning to speak. She forgot where she left her keys. Then she forgot why she was holding them. At first, it was small, repeating a story she told just yesterday, calling the microwave the dishwasher, forgetting the name of a neighbor she's known for 30 years. Everyone laughed kindly. You're allowed to forget a few things at your age. And she smiled. But later, in the quiet of her room, she folded her hands, stared at the wall, and whispered, "Why can't I hold on to anything anymore?" The body might tire first, but when the mind begins to dim, it feels like something sacred is slipping through your fingers. This is more than forgetfulness. It's a soft unraveling of the self. Cognitive decline in the final year doesn't always scream. Sometimes it drifts in gently, one forgotten word at a time, one confused glance at a familiar face, one lost step in a once-known routine. They start forgetting the day, then the month, then where they are, then why they came into the room. And most painfully, they begin forgetting who they are to the people they love most. But the truth is, the person inside is still there, still feeling, still listening, even if the words don't always connect, still loving, even if they can't say your name. Their silence is not absence. It's the mind slowly protecting them from a noise of a world that now moves too fast, asks too much. And so they withdraw from games, from conversation, from noise, from gatherings, not because they don't care, but because the effort of holding a conversation, of remembering the thread, of pretending to understand, becomes too exhausting. They might begin to sit longer in silence, or wander the house aimlessly, or respond with simple phrases, "I'm fine, maybe later, I don't know," just to keep the peace. And in those moments, families often feel helpless. We try reminders. We write notes. We correct gently. "No, Mom, that was last week." But each correction feels like a small wound to them. Each reminder, a quiet reminder of what's slipping away. Some begin to hallucinate, not vividly, but gently. They speak to people who aren't there, smile at someone sitting in an empty chair, or ask if you've seen the baby when no child is nearby. And in those moments, it's not helpful to argue or pull them back to reality. It's more loving to enter theirs, just for a moment. You might say, "She seems happy, doesn't she?" Or, "Tell me more about her." Because what they need most now is not correction. It's comfort. You may also notice mood swings, sudden anger, sharp defensiveness, tears for no reason, or laughter that arrives too late, or not at all. It's not personal. It's not cruel. It's confusion, frustration, fear, expressed through the only emotions the body can still easily access. The brain, struggling to make sense of everything, lashes out like a frightened animal. And this is where the deepest patience is required. Because to love someone through cognitive decline is to let go of who they were without ever letting go of who they are now. It's to see the sacred in every smile they still offer, to treasure the rare moment of clarity like sunlight through the clouds. It's to hold their hand and say, "I'm right here," even if they ask for you by another name. This stage brings grief, but a strange, slow kind, not sudden, Not sharp, but a grief that stretches across weeks and months. A feeling that you are losing them bit by bit, memory by memory. And yet, even in this fading, there is love, a quiet, steady kind. The kind that doesn't need full sentences. The kind that survives even when recognition fades. And what can you do? Create a calm environment. Soft lights, familiar objects, photos with names, gentle music from their youth. Speak slowly. Use their name. Hold their hand often. Let silence be okay. If they ask the same question 3 times, answer it 3 times. With kindness, with patience, as if it were the first time. Because for them, it is the first time. Every time. And when they look at you with confusion, don't take it as rejection. See it as the brain's way of protecting them from a world they can no longer map. And if you find yourself crying alone at night, or grieving before they're gone, know that you're not alone. This path has been walked by many, and it is okay to mourn the changes, even as you care for them. It's okay to wish for one more lucid conversation, one more moment of shared memory, one more "I love you" that they know they've said. But if that moment never comes again, remember this. Even if they forget your name, they will never forget your love. Because love doesn't live in the brain. It lives in the soul. And the soul never forgets who held its hand through the dark. And so, when the eyes seem distant, when the silence grows longer, when their mind begins to wander where you cannot follow, don't pull them back. Sit beside them. Follow the rhythm of their breathing. And become their anchor. Quietly. Lovingly. But the mind isn't the only system that falters in the final stretch. The next whisper is even more physical, more urgent, because when the body's defenses begin to collapse, it no longer forgets, it succumbs. Even when the words are gone, love still knows a way. It began with a cough that lingered, then came a bruise that wouldn't fade. Most people wouldn't have noticed. A little more time spent in bed. A small scrape on the shin that stayed red longer than usual. A sniffle that turned into something deeper. But if you look closely, if you really pay attention, you'll see it. The body isn't bouncing back like it used to. And maybe it doesn't want it anymore. In the final chapter of life, the immune system becomes fragile. Not broken, just tired. The fortress that once kept every cold and wound at bay begins to lower its gates. And so, infections slip in quietly. A urinary tract infection, a case of pneumonia, a fever with no clear source, or even something as small as a sore in the mouth that makes eating difficult. They don't always scream emergency. Sometimes they whisper through a loss of appetite, a sudden sleepiness, or a confused sentence that feels off. And families often miss it at first, because these infections don't show up the way they used to. There's no blazing fever, no loud complaint, just a gentle turning inward. You'll see it in their eyes. A dullness where spark used to live. A quiet discomfort in their movement. A hesitation to get up, not out of laziness, but out of fatigue that feels heavier than usual. And if you're not watching carefully, you might miss the signs. Their skin becomes more delicate, tissue paper thin. A light bump leaves a dark bruise. A small scratch scabs slowly, then breaks open again days later. What once took a few days to heal now lingers for weeks. Sometimes never fully closing. And then there's the smell, not unpleasant, just different. The faint scent of unhealed skin, a trace of something the body no longer filters as well. These aren't things we like to talk about, but they matter because they're signals. The body, once a self-healing miracle, now needs help with even the smallest repairs. You might also see them chill more often, wearing sweaters in warm rooms, wrapping themselves in blankets not for comfort, but because their body is no longer regulating temperature well. Cold hands, blue-tinged fingers, a paleness in the face that wasn't there before. These are signs that circulation is weakening, that the blood, the river of healing and warmth, is no longer flowing as freely. When infections arrive more often and last longer, it's not just about germs. It's about systems collapsing quietly. The gut doesn't absorb nutrients the same. The liver processes slower. The kidneys tire. And the immune system, once fierce, is now folding into stillness. It's natural to want to fix it, to call the doctor, get antibiotics, run tests. And sometimes those steps help temporarily, but often you'll find the same infection returns, or a new one replaces it, because the root isn't the bug, it's the soil. The ground beneath is changing. And healing, now, isn't about curing, it's about comforting. Here's where the shift happens, not just for them, but for you. You stop asking, how do we make this go away? And start asking, how do we make this easier to live with? And that question changes everything. Instead of more pills, you bring warm tea. Instead of dragging them to another clinic visit, you sit and massage lotion into dry hands. You clean wounds gently. You change linens often. You keep the room cool but cozy. You protect them from pressure sores with soft pillows, not just medical charts. And you watch their face, the way it softens when the room is quiet, the way they sigh in relief when their skin is moisturized, the way their eyes thank you, even if their mouth says nothing. Because healing in the final year is no longer about recovery. It's about relief, about stillness, about helping the body let go with dignity. There's also a truth few speak aloud. Infections often become the final push, not because they're brutal, but because the body is ready. A cold that lingers turns to pneumonia. A small wound becomes septic. A UTI spreads infusion before anyone catches it. And even when medicine works, briefly, the body doesn't return to what it was. It steps forward again quietly toward its ending. This is not failure. This is nature. The slow, inevitable winding down a life that has given much. And when you understand this, you stop fighting and start loving more intentionally. So what can you do? Be present. Create a clean, peaceful space. Gently tend to wounds even when they seem minor. Listen to the subtle shifts in their voice, their skin, their energy. And most of all, ask them how they feel. Really ask, not just, are you okay? But, does anything feel strange today? Do you want a little more warmth? Would it help to rest now? Because sometimes what they need most is not medicine. It's attention. Gentle, quiet, consistent attention. And when they drift off more often, when they stop eating even soft foods, when infections don't stop but no longer bring fear, that's when you know they are not losing the battle. They are nearing the threshold. But infections were only the fourth whisper. The fifth comes in the rhythm of breath, in the color of the skin, in the air itself growing still. The body does not scream when it's done. It whispers. And if we love them, we must learn to listen. First, it was just a pause between breaths. Then, it was the way her hands stayed cold, even in the sun. There's something haunting about watching someone breathe differently. It's subtle at first. They sigh more often. Their chest rises slower. You think maybe they're just tired. But then, something shifts. The rhythm falters. The inhale doesn't come as quickly. The exhale stretches longer than it used to. And suddenly, the room feels quieter. Not just in sound, but in life. Breathing and circulation changes are among the most visible and often most misunderstood signs that the body is preparing to rest. They do not arrive like thunder. They creep in like fog, soft, inevitable, honest. You might first notice their breaths become shallow. You lean in closer to hear it. Is it steady? Is it strained? They may begin breathing through their mouth more often, or take breaks mid-sentence, not because they forgot their words, but because their body is catching up to the effort. Some begin to cough, softly, persistently. It's not from a cold. It's fluid, slowly gathering where the lungs once clear with ease. Others experience what's known as Shane Stokes breathing, a pattern where breaths grow rapid, then stop altogether for long seconds, then return, gasping and irregular. It can be terrifying to witness. But in truth, it's not pain. It's the nervous system letting go of control. The body breathing for comfort now, not survival. You may also see them shift in bed frequently, seeking ease. Lying flat may feel suffocating. They begin to prefer propped pillows or sleeping in a recliner, upright becomes safety. It's not just preference, it's physiology. Lying down allows fluid to rise. And for a body struggling to breathe, every inch of gravity matters. Then come the circulatory changes. You reach for their hand. It's cool, then cold. Fingers you once held warm now feel like porcelain in winter. Feet grow pale, toes bluish. Sometimes their ears or nose carry a shadow of purple, not from bruising, but from the blood slowly retreating to the body's core. This isn't cause for alarm. It's a message. The heart, recognizing its limits, begins to focus only on the essentials. It sends blood to the brain, the lungs, the center, the periphery, the fingers, the toes. The outer glow becomes less important, and the skin responds. It becomes mottled, pale patches mixed with purple streaks. Not painful, not dangerous, just the body redistributing warmth to where it's needed most. To the observer, this can be deeply unsettling. It feels like life is slipping away right before your eyes. And in a way it is, but not in violence, not in fear, in surrender. The body, so long the warrior, is laying down its sword, and that laying down is breathtaking in its silence. You may also hear gurgling, wet sounds in the throat. They are not choking. They are not in distress. It's the buildup of secretions that the body no longer clears as before. Muscles that once swallowed with precision now tire. Coughing once forceful is now soft or absent. This is known as the death rattle, a phrase that sounds harsh, but is often peaceful. It is not a sound of suffering. It is a sound of the body exhaling again and again in its own rhythm. What can you do? First, let go of the urge to fix it. This is not a sickness to cure. It is a passage to honor. You can elevate their head gently. Use a humidifier to soothe the air. Wipe their lips and brow with a cool cloth. Offer sips of water if they still swallow. Hold their hand, not tightly, just enough to remind them they're not alone. And perhaps most importantly, you can match your breathing to theirs. Sit nearby, close your eyes, and let your inhale and exhale follow theirs. It becomes a quiet communion, a farewell in rhythm. For family members, this stage can be the most painful because it's visual, it's audible, it's real in a way the other signs weren't. You see the color leave their hands. You hear the change in their breath. And suddenly, you can no longer pretend they're getting better. But in this clarity lies a gift. You are no longer focused on trying to make them eat or walk or return to how they were. You are present, truly present. You speak less. You touch more. You listen not for answers, but for being. There may come a moment when the breathing pauses longer than before. You hold your own breath, wondering, then it returns, gently, softly. And that, too, is a moment of grace. These changes are not scary when understood. They are not a storm. They are not a breaking. They are a folding, a curling inward, a quiet gathering of self, ready to leave the body behind. And when that breath does stop, when the color fades completely, when the room stills, you will not have missed it. You will have witnessed it, with courage, with reverence, with love. But that moment has not yet come. There are still ripples of life, still things to say, still hearts beating in the same room. Because after the body shows its final signs, the soul still waits for what comes next, understanding, grieving, letting go. When breath becomes a whisper, presence becomes everything. It's not a single moment. It's a series of quiet recognitions. A week ago, you were still making plans. You were still hoping, still thinking, maybe if we adjust the meds, maybe if we bring in a specialist, maybe if they just rest a little longer. But now, something has changed. Not outside. Inside you, you walk into the room, and instead of wondering what you can do to make them better, you wonder what you can do to make them more comfortable. That's the turning point. Not the moment when they stop walking, not the first missed meal, not the change in breath, but the moment you begin to understand what's really happening. You catch yourself watching them longer, savoring the sound of their voice, if they still speak, memorizing the lines of their face, just in case, holding their hand more often without needing a reason. This shift doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like a soft tide rising around your ankles. You can't stop it. You just feel it, and it changes you. There's a word for it, though it's rarely said aloud. Anticipatory grief. The pain you feel before the actual loss. The ache of watching someone fade, breath by breath, knowing what's coming, but not knowing when. And yet, not wanting to say it. Not yet, because saying it makes it real. In this stage, time begins to stretch and collapse. You count the hours between changes. Did she eat yesterday? Did he wake up today? You lose track of days because everything becomes measured by small signals. How long they kept their eyes open, whether they reached for your hand, the way they responded, if at all, to your goodnight kiss. And yet, inside this heaviness, something unexpected appears. Stillness. Not peace, not yet, but stillness. The kind that comes when the fight is over. Not defeat. Acceptance. You notice you're no longer arguing with the situation. You're no longer calling every possible expert. You're no longer pretending that next week will be better. Instead, you sit, you watch, you listen, and when they sleep, you don't try to wake them. You let them rest, because you know rest is sacred now. You begin to treasure the smallest things. A blink, a smile, a squeeze of the hand that might be the last. You whisper stories from their life, not because they need to hear them, but because you need to say them. You don't wait for them to answer. You speak anyway. Remember that summer by the lake? You always love lemon cake. Do you know how much I love you? You stop looking at the clock. You stop asking how many days are left. Because suddenly, it's not about the number of days. It's about the depth of each one. This is the moment where some feel helpless. They want to do more. They want to fix, solve, rescue. But the truth is, this stage doesn't need heroes. It needs witnesses. It needs love without urgency, presence without pressure. It needs the kind of strength that looks like softness, and that perhaps is the hardest part for many. To learn that loving someone through death is not about holding on tighter. It's about holding them gently as they begin to let go. You might find yourself crying at odd moments, not just in sadness, but in awe of how fragile life is, how beautiful every breath has become, how quiet the world feels when you stop pretending everything is okay. You may cry while folding their blankets, while hearing their favorite song, while brushing their thinning hair and noticing the scalp beneath. And if you are the caregiver, the spouse, the daughter, the son, you might begin to feel guilty. Am I doing enough? Should I have tried harder? Did I miss something? But let this be said clearly. If you are here, you are doing enough. Your presence is the greatest gift. Your hand, your voice, your love, these are more powerful than any prescription. In these days, don't be afraid to say the things you've left unsaid. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. You don't have to say them all. Even one is enough. Even a look, a tear, a touch, because this is a turning point, not just for them, but for you too. You are entering a space that most never prepare for, a sacred space, where love meets mortality, where silence becomes language, where presence is prayer. And there's nothing you need to do or fix or change. Just be there. Let the sunlight fall across their bed. Let the breeze touch their face if the window's open. Let music play softly in the background. Speak less. Feel more. Say their name. Because what comes next is not about waiting for the end. It's about honoring what's left. And you may wonder how you'll know when the moment is near. The truth is you'll feel it. The breath will be different. The room will feel different. Your own body will know. It won't be dramatic, but it will be profound. And in that knowing, you will not be afraid. Because you have already begun to say goodbye, not in one word, but in every touch, every glance, every breath you shared along the way. The most powerful goodbye begins not with words, but with presence. Grief doesn't wait for death. It begins the moment we know what's coming. You look at their face and wonder if they can still hear you. You listen to their breath and wonder if it will be the last. And then, The question rises quietly in your heart. How do you keep living while someone you love is slowly leaving? This is the burden the family carries. Not the weight of the body, but the weight of the heart. In the early stages, there is still hope. You hold on tightly. You believe in rebounds, in good days, in second winds. But as the signs deepen, as fatigue settles and the breath changes, the hope doesn't die, it transforms. It becomes softer, less about saving, more about cherishing. And in that transformation, grief begins. Everyone in the family grieves differently. Some talk more. They share stories, bring laughter to the bedside, try to keep the energy alive. Some retreat. They sit silently, folding blankets, organizing pills, doing what they can to feel useful. Others become angry, at doctors, at each other, at the unfairness of watching someone they love disappear one day at a time. There is no correct way to grieve, no perfect script for how to react. Some will cry easily, others won't cry at all. Some will want to be there every second. Others will step away, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But whatever the response, it is valid, because love doesn't always look the same, and neither does sorrow. Children may not understand what's happening, but they feel it. They sense the heaviness in the air. They watch adults whisper in kitchens. They hear the difference in how people say good morning. Even pets feel it, curling close, refusing to leave the room, growing quiet themselves. Death, when it draws near, creates a stillness that moves through the house like fog, and everyone breathes it in. There may be guilt for not noticing the signs sooner, for not saying the right thing, for moments of impatience, for wishing, even just once, that would all be over just to stop the pain. But guilt, too, is part of love. It means you care deeply. It means you were trying imperfectly but earnestly to do your best. And if they could speak fully now, they'd say, that was enough. This is also the time when old wounds may resurface. Family tensions, siblings who disagree, old roles that return, one child doing everything, another staying away. And while it may be tempting to judge, remember, everyone is walking through this loss with their own history, their own fear, their own version of love. Now is not the time for battles. Now is the time for grace. If you are the primary caregiver, your heart may feel like it's breaking in slow motion. You smile when they open their eyes. You cry in the laundry room where no one sees. You lie awake at night, counting their breaths, then second-guessing if you counted right. It is one of the hardest roles a person can take on, to walk someone home. But there is deep beauty in it, too. You become their final witness, their last safe place, the keeper of their comfort, their stories, their dignity. And that is sacred. For spouses, the pain cuts differently. You remember the way they once looked across the room at you, the way they held your hand while laughing, the fights you had, the reconciliations, the routines so deeply woven you stopped noticing them. Now, you memorize every blink, because you know what's coming. And how do you prepare to say goodbye to the person who knew your past, shared your present, and was once part of every plan for the future? There's no preparation, but there is tenderness and silence and the quiet understanding that even as their body fades, what you share will not. If you're watching your parent go, the grief is layered. You become the adult. You make decisions. You answer questions. You keep the phone charged. You sign forms you never want to sign. And yet, inside you are still their child, the one who wants to crawl into their lap, to ask if everything will be okay, even as you help them dress, even as you brush their hair. This reversal is one of life's most painful gifts, to care for the one who once cared for you, and to say goodbye without ever wanting to. There will be moments when everything feels too heavy, when the air in the house feels thick with sorrow, when you wish you could go back to last year, last month, yesterday. You will miss them before they're gone. You will grieve while they're still breathing. You will feel their absence forming, long before their hand lets go. But this is also the time for connection. Raw, honest, final. Say the words. Sit together. Cry together. Forgive each other. Laugh if you can, because these are the moments that become memory. These are the touches that echo long after the room falls silent. And if you are reading this now, if you're in the thick of it, please remember this. You are not failing. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are human, and you are loving in the deepest way possible. By staying, by showing up, by letting go gently. And when the moment finally comes, you'll still feel unprepared. That's okay. No one ever feels ready. Not really. But you'll know this. You were there. You love them well. And they felt it. Sometimes the heaviest thing we carry is the love we can no longer give. There's a moment when you stop hoping they'll get better and start praying they're not in pain. It's a shift so gentle, you almost miss it. You wake up one morning and realize you're no longer thinking about next week. You're thinking about today, this hour, this breath. You sit beside them, not to make plans, but to make peace. You no longer count the meals they skipped. You just thank them when they manage a bite. You don't ask how they're feeling every hour. You just offer water and love and your presence. This is acceptance, not resignation, not defeat, but the deep, soul-level understanding that life, in its final form, has its own rhythm. And your job now is to walk beside it. For some, acceptance arrives as a sigh. For others, a tear. For many, it looks like stillness. The rush of panic softens. The impulse to fix gives way to something quieter, a kind of reverence. You begin to see beauty in their slow breathing, in the curve of their fingers resting on the blanket, in the faint flutter of their eyelashes as they drift between sleep and waking. You start lighting a candle in the room, not for ceremony, just for peace. You speak more softly. You move more slowly. You understand that your energy shapes the space around them. And so you become gentler, not out of fear, but out of love. Comfort now becomes a compass. You fluff the pillow twice, even if it doesn't need fluffing. You warm their blanket in the dryer before tucking it over their legs. You dab their lips with a damp cloth, not just to moisten, but to care. You place their favorite book by the bedside. You hum softly while brushing their hair. You notice their forehead tense, and without thinking, you place your palm there, cool, steady, reassuring. You stop asking if they need anything. You simply give. Because now, comfort is no longer optional. It's everything. This is where courage is born. Not the loud, movie kind of courage, but the quiet bravery of staying, of showing up day after day, even when your heart aches, even when the outcome is certain, even when you wish you could switch places, just for one more hour of their laughter. You keep going. You keep loving. That is courage. And here's something else. They feel it, even if they can no longer speak, even if their eyes don't open. They know your voice still reaches them. Your hands still ground them. Your presence still matters. Never doubt that. Acceptance also brings reflection. You find yourself remembering the early days, the first time they made you laugh so hard your stomach hurt, the way they danced in the kitchen barefoot, the way they cheered you on even when you didn't believe in yourself. And now, here you are, returning the favor, cheering them on, not toward recovery, but toward rest. You might start talking to them more, even if they don't respond. I'm right here. You're safe. You did so well. I'm proud of you. Not because they need reminding, but because you do. Because saying those words out loud keeps your heart from closing under the weight of goodbye. The stage is tender. You find yourself watching the clock less. The world outside seems quieter. The house takes on a rhythm of its own. Meals, medications, visits, soft music, whisper prayers. It's not sadness that fills the space. It's presence. The sacred kind that doesn't need noise to be known. And yes, there will still be moments of fear. Moments when you feel the wave of loss rising behind you, ready to crash. But you will learn to breathe with it, to let it move through you instead of trying to outrun it. That, too, is courage. Some families create rituals, reading a psalm, playing a favorite song, lighting incense, sitting in silence with hands joined. It doesn't matter what the ritual is. What matters is that it slows time. Create a pocket of stillness in a world that rushes past death too quickly. Others simply sit, in silence, in warmth, in memory. The greatest comfort often comes not from doing, but from being calm, being present, being willing to face the end with open hands instead of clenched fists. You may whisper the same phrase over and over again. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. And those words become more than comfort. They become sacred, a promise that they will not leave this world alone. That love stayed to the very last breath. You might still hope for one more moment of clarity, one more glance, one more smile. And sometimes you get it, a squeeze of the hand, a flutter of the eyes, a half smile before sleep. If it comes, treasure it. If it doesn't, know this. The love was still there. It never left. It was never measured in words or gestures. It was always bigger than that. This is what it means to love someone into their next chapter. To let go without abandoning. To release without forgetting. And when the final moment comes, when the room grows still, you will not regret your softness. You will not regret your presence. You will only be grateful that you stayed, that you gave them peace, that you were brave enough to love through the hardest goodbye. In the end, we don't remember the pain. We remember who stayed. If you're still here, it means your heart is holding something heavy. Maybe you're watching someone fade. Maybe you've already said goodbye. Or maybe you're remembering a loss you never truly got to grieve. Wherever you are, however you found your way to these words, you need to hear this. You are not alone. There's something sacred about sitting with the truth of dying. Not everyone can do it. Most people look away, distract themselves, hope the moment passes quickly. But you didn't. You stayed. You listened. You chose to walk through it, breath by breath. That takes courage. A kind of love that doesn't shout. A strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And if your loved one is still with you and the signs are starting to show, don't be afraid to slow down. You don't have to rush to fix everything. You don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes, your quiet presence is the most healing thing in the room. Talk to them, even if they don't answer. Hold their hand, even if it no longer grips back. Say their name. Say, I love you. Say, I'm here. Because presence whispers louder than any medicine. And if you've already said goodbye, I know the silence they left behind still echoes. In rooms, in routines, in dreams you didn't get to finish together. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't care about time. It waits. It lingers. And it often shows up disguised as exhaustion or forgetfulness or anger or numbness. That's okay. It means you loved. Deeply, fully, without guarantees. And that is the most human thing you could have done. Some people may tell you to move on, to be strong, to keep going. But I'm here to tell you something different. You don't have to move on. You only have to move with it, with the love, with the memories, with the ache that comes and goes like the tide. You carry them forward, not as a shadow, but as a part of your story now. You don't leave them behind. You bring them with you. If you're the caregiver, I want you to know what you did mattered. The meals, the quiet nights, the hundreds of small things you think no one noticed. They noticed, even if they couldn't say it, even if they were already slipping away. Your effort, your patience, your tears, they were seen, and they were enough. Maybe you're tired now, bone tired, soul tired, like you've given every part of yourself and still wonder if you did enough. Let me say it clearly so you don't forget. You did. And to those who fear they miss the signs, that they weren't there in time, that they couldn't do more, that they should have said something else. You are not alone in that, either. Regret is a companion of love. It shows up because we wish we had more. More time, more clarity, more chances. But love doesn't live only in the perfect goodbye. It lives in all the messy, unfinished, unspoken things too. And sometimes we don't realize how much we love someone until we feel the space they left behind. That space hurts, and it's sacred. It's a reminder that they existed, that they mattered, that your story was forever changed by theirs. So what now? What do you do with this knowledge, these 5 signs, this journey you've walked, these feelings you're holding? You honor it, not by fearing death, but by loving more deeply while you're still alive, by checking in on someone today, by forgiving someone tomorrow, by slowing down, by making that call, by sitting with someone in silence, instead of always filling the space. You honor it by living on purpose, with intention, with kindness, with presence, because life is not just about how we live. It's about how we love and how we say goodbye when the time comes. So to you, dear viewer, still watching, still listening, still feeling, thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for loving. Thank you for being the kind of person who chooses presence over avoidance. You are not alone, not in your fear, not in your sadness, not in your hope. And if you're holding back tears right now, let them fall. This is not just a video. This is a moment. And moments like this, they soften us. They remind us what matters, who matters, and how fleeting and beautiful and fragile this life really is. Your journey isn't over. Your story is still being written. Carry them with you. Carry this truth with you. That love never leaves. It only changes form. From handshakes to memories. From shared meals to songs that play unexpectedly. From spoken words to quiet, sacred silence. And that silence is not empty. It's full of every I love you, of every goodbye, of every breath you share before the last. We do not lose them. We learn to live with the love they left behind. If this video has touched your heart, tell us in the comments, what moment are you holding close today? Your stories help others heal. Your voice matters here. And your love, whether given recently or years ago, still echoes in the world. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for walking this path with open eyes and an open heart. You are not alone. Not now. Not ever.